Hi everybody, we'll make a start. As I said, some people may be joining us as we progress, but at least we can get started. So thank everybody for joining us and for being on time. My name is Sean Power and I'm one of the team here at Refractive, and we're the creators of OverDRIVE. The session today will last around 30 minutes and we'll make a recording available afterwards, so you can either review the information or share it with your colleagues as you need to. If you do have any questions during the event, then there is a chat box on the lower right-hand corner of the screen. So just pop your questions in there. We'll try to get to them at the end of the session. If that's not possible, then we'll cover them after the session and come back to you when available. Good. So this is the agenda that we've got for the event today. We've got a few slides, and it is only a few slides, just to introduce the OverDRIVE product. But we'll spend most of the time actually showing you the product in action. So we'll be creating a site live and showing you one or two features about what OverDRIVE is, what it can do, etc., and how it works. We'll also look at some of the organizations who are currently using OverDRIVE, and perhaps more importantly, looking at what they're actually doing it for and what they're using it for. And that hopefully will spark some ideas for things that you could use it for within your organization. And how you can take advantage of its functionality would be useful. And then finally, we'll look at discuss the possible next steps in your investigation of OverDRIVE, what you can do, what the options are, and then, as I said, we'll get to the questions which have been raised during the session. So this is a brief overview of OverDRIVE. OverDRIVE is designed primarily for organizations using G Suite. And that's because it's so deeply integrated with G Suite and lets you build a website or a portal automatically from folders and files in Drive, and also pulls data from elsewhere, other services within the G Suite range. Your staff and others within the organization can transform this Google G Suite data and the content and create great looking web pages, really without the need for specialist skills. And you see this in the demonstration, how easy it is to create sites and pages, etc. Your staff and other users outside the organization will have easy online access to the resources and information that they need. And also, as an added bonus, it's available from any device. So however they want to access the information, they'll be able to see that information in the OverDRIVE sites that you create. There are a wide range of potential uses for OverDRIVE. Some of the most popular ones are things like intranets, extranets, client sites, education portals, etc. And as you see in the demonstration when we progress, it takes such little time to create an OverDRIVE site that you can easily build a site for a one-off requirement, such as an event or a meeting or something for a short-term use. But equally, it's also used for long-term sites, such as I mentioned before, intranets and project workspaces, etc. The product itself is licensed by the number of users rather than the number of sites that you have. So really, there's no restriction on the number of OverDRIVE sites that you can have. And this is one reason why there's such a proliferation of OverDRIVE sites within our client base, because once it's used for one particular purpose, it's often extended into other areas of the business. OverDRIVE itself is hosted on Google Cloud Platform, and that's the same platform that's used by Google for its own services, such as Gmail, YouTube, Search, G Suite, etc. So there are now, I think there's 8 or 9 billion user services which are running on the Google Cloud Platform. So it's remarkably robust. It provides us with a scalability that just cannot be matched, and also world-class security for the OverDRIVE product. And there are also a choice for regions when you're creating sites, just to speed up access and make it easy for your users. Okay, so that's kind of just a quick overview of what OverDRIVE is. Hopefully that's given you an idea. If you haven't spent a great deal of time investigating what it is so far, hopefully it's given you some kind of background. Now, I want to spend the most of the remaining time in the session actually showing you it in action, because that's the only way that really we're going to be able to understand what it is and what it can do, etc. So here's a screen which is probably quite familiar to you. We've got a Google Drive screen here, and there are two ways in which we can create OverDRIVE sites. First one is to start with a completely blank site and add in the pages and the navigation and the content as you go. And you're pulling that from across your G Suite environment, but also from external sources as well. And the other way is to start with a predetermined or a predefined structure for the site, with perhaps content which is already created and embedded within that structure, and then turn that structure and that content into an OverDRIVE site that you can then share with your colleagues, external contacts, etc. For expediency, I'm going to use the second method here. So here in my Google Drive screen, I've got this folder conveniently called New Intranet folder. So I'm going to base this on an intranet, as I said, because it's a popular use for OverDRIVE, and also it's quite a generic use. So no doubt you'll have some ideas of what you want to see in here. So here under the top level folder, I've got some subfolders. And some of these subfolders, again, I've got subfolders. So I'm going down several levels of folders within here. And again, some of these folders have got some content which has already been created. So this may have been pulled from other locations within Drive, or it may be explicitly situated within this folder. Now, I've pre-authorized OverDRIVE, so all I need to do is right-click on the top-level folder, and I go to this option here saying Open with OverDRIVE. So it's very easy for me to initiate the process of starting to create a site. So the first thing that happens is I sign into my site, and in this case, I'm using my Google credentials to sign in. We'll see later perhaps that you can use other accounts such as LinkedIn, Facebook, Microsoft, etc. to sign into your sites. First site that you create, I'll talk a little bit later about your trial options here, but the first site you'll get will give you this this tool essentially to take you through one or two features. For OverDRIVE, I'm going to get rid of this because I'll show you this rather than following the tour. And the site is literally being created from that data that exists within that Google Drive structure. So a folder within Google Drive becomes a menu item within OverDRIVE, and you see it's also brought through some of the content that exists within this structure. And that's basically the site created. So I've pulled all that information across. I have incorporated all the folders and created my menu structure, and it essentially just has created the site for me. There's a quick question from Stephanie. Does OverDRIVE require a separate login, or can it be accessed through the G Suite login? Yeah, it's the same login, so you're using the same account essentially, Stephanie. So you don't need a separate login. You just need to use your Google credentials. And again, it's not just G Suite credentials, it's any Google account. So it's a free civilian Gmail account, or an analytics account, or a YouTube account, or anything, just so Google knows who you are effectively. So I could start to share this site with my users, but frankly, it's not particularly inspiring in the way that it looks. So what I'm going to do now is just change the way that it looks and just brighten it up a little bit. And I do this under this menu here. We call this our cog menu, because this is basically an admin function. So I click on here, and the option that I'm looking for is a template designer. And bear in mind, this is the one-time event, really. So I'm just setting up the site for accessing this one time, and I'm designing it this time. So every user who comes in here, every visitor, they'll see the site in the way that I want them to be able to see it. Just a quick question from Megan. Can you make a public website, or is this intended for internal company use? Yeah, you've got a whole range of choice, Megan. So you can have a site which is completely public, so everybody who visits can access everything. You can have a completely private site, so everybody has to sign in and see the information. And also you can segment that information by user. So I log on to the same site as you, and I see different information to you. Or indeed, you can have a hybrid situation where some of the site is publicly available, but some of it is private. So we may see some of that later if we get time. So when I'm creating the template for the site, the look and feel and design, you see I've got a whole range of options here. I can change fonts, colors, layout, sizes. I've got anything that I want to change, I can make here. And again, I can also do this by code. So you can access, if you've got any development skills, you can access the style sheets and also add any JavaScript as well. So if there is something very specific that you want, then you can do that. I'm not going to play about with all these because there's far too many options on here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to choose one of the predetermined templates that we have up here. Now, these are our templates that we've designed, that we've given to you. You can also design your own templates and enable you to access them across your sites. So I'll choose this Explorer. I quite like this one because it's full width. Colors aren't particularly interesting, but you get the idea. And again, if I want to, I can change any of these features or these criteria here, even though I've chosen a standard template. But I'm happy with that. I think that's enough for now. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on the design because we'll see a completed site in a few minutes. Okay, so once I've got the site looking the way that I want it, it's branded using my brand colors. I'll perhaps add my logo in. I'll change the way that the menus appear and all that kind of thing. Just make it look the way that I want it to look. Now I can concentrate on the content of the site. I've brought my content in from Drive, but actually I want to display it in a particular way. And we do this using what we call Page Builder, which is basically our drag and drop page design. And what I'll do, I'm going to mock up a kind of an event site just to give you an idea of the type of things that you can do and show you how quickly things can be done. This is a folder view of the documents here. I've got my folders in here. The subfolders will be behind them, and I've got some content as well. That doesn't work for me in this page, so I'm just going to get rid of that very quickly. And one thing I do want to bring in, I want to bring a slide deck. So I'm bringing in a Google slide deck. And I've got the option here to choose which deck I want. So I can quickly select it from here. You see I can search Google Drive and I can also search shared drives. So OverDRIVE works very well with shared drives as well. And in this particular case, I'm going to use this option here, which is current site, which basically means the asset that I want already exists within this structure. So it's easy to find, and I'll choose that one because it's fairly easy. And I've got some other options depending on what I choose up here. So that's a dynamic list. And once that's come through, I can have a look at it and say, well, no, let's squeeze it a little bit. Let's expand the size, etc. Now I want to add in a Google Doc. So there's a couple of ways that we can add in Google Docs. Again, I'll turn off the header because I don't need that. And I'll go through the same process again. I'm going to choose the file that I want. It could be in any of these folders. It could be in Drive or shared drives, as I mentioned before. Here, just for convenience, it's here. So I'll select that. And again, I can change the way that this is displayed on the page. And you'll get used to what works and what doesn't work in certain circumstances. So I can choose that, and then again I'll resize this just so I've got some space on screen. So I've got my presentation deck. I've got my agenda doc. Well, what else do I need? Well, actually, let's have a map, for instance. So let's drag a map across from here, and again I'll turn off the header and I'll choose the map. You may have heard about something called My Maps, which is where I can create maps with multiple points of interest on it. I could use that, but in this case, let's just go for Moscone in San Francisco. And if I've typed that right, then Google Maps will be able to find that for me there. So now my users and visitors will be able to find where we're attending. What I might also want to do is let's have a look at contacts. So I want to include some contacts in here. So let's say your event team. You'll see how this works and it looks in a minute as a header. And I can share my Google contacts now. So anybody who's used Google for a while will know that's always been quite difficult. But now we can actually do that within OverDRIVE. So I can bring in a group that I've created, this project team. I can decide how it looks. I'm going to add my photos in and just click OK. And again, whatever I want to do on here will be displayed, and I can resize that as appropriate. I think that will do for now. And then finally, what I might want to do is let's have a discussion block in here, just so users can have a discussion with administrators to find out, opening times, parking arrangements, etc., etc. So those are the blocks that I want on here. This page is looking okay. I might want to resize this and even it up a little bit, but as far as it's concerned, it's mostly done and it mostly works. So now I just need to commit those changes. So I click save, and that's my page created. So whoever I share this site with, this is the information that they will see. And you'll see it's an interactive data on here. So I can step through on the slide deck. I can zoom in and out of the map. I can click on the contacts and I get a pop-up to see more information, and I can add comments and add replies, etc. So it's an interactive page that I've created. And that's basically the process of creating an OverDRIVE site. Some pages will be very, very simple because it might just be a list of documents. Others may just have an embedded document on there. And others will be more complicated like this, where I'm bringing in multiple sources of information onto the one page, all around a particular subject. And bear in mind, I can change anything about this page that I want to. So I can remove the header if I want, I can remove the breadcrumbs, I can obviously change the colors as we've seen, etc. I can change the sizes, I can segment it to certain users. So when certain users see this page, I can really do whatever I want with it. I'm not going to spend too much more time on this side, but what I want to show you very briefly is a kind of a completed site. Probably too complicated for an actual live intranet because there's too much information on here, but just trying to get across the type of things that we can do. So things you haven't seen, we've embedded an image. We've got some action buttons here, and these action buttons take us to other places within this site or elsewhere, or to other applications or other web pages. We've got some detailed searches. So I'm searching the web, I'm searching this site. I can also do Google Cloud search if you've got that amongst you. So there's a range of things that I can search. I've got an embedded document folder view. And again, we're adding some options here where I can download the information or I can make copies of the documents on here. So I'm taking the information that exists within G Suite, and then I'm enhancing the functionality that I have with that information. Show you one or two things. I'm not going to show you everything because there's far too much to show you. But another way that we can display information is what we call an embedded document, effectively. So here I've got an underlying Google document, and I've ripped the contents out of that Google document and I've placed it on the page, and I've added in this pagination function. So I can move from page to view the information. Now, underlying here is a Google document. And all I'm doing is just representing it, displaying it in a different manner. And another thing that I can do is I've got the option here, this kind of strange option, switch to edit mode. So now what I can do is take a Google Doc that exists somewhere within Drive. I can pull that into my site. I can embed it on the page. I can manipulate how it's displayed on the page, and I can even edit it on the page if I've got sufficient rights to do so. So and everything, any change that I make in here is automatically reflected back into Drive. So it keeps everything in sync, which is very, very positive. So again, just adding more functionality to what we can do with the data that exists within G Suite. I can also display information as a company blog. So here I've got a series of Google documents. I'm kind of ripping some content out. So I'm displaying a snippet of information and an image. I can click through. These are embedded. So I'm again taking the contents and throwing those onto the page, and I can step through here so I can find the information and I can read the articles that I'm interested in reading. Again, just makes it easy for users to find the information and for them to be able to interact with it. I can do something very similar and better in some ways with Google Sheets. So here I've got a Google Sheet that's embedded. It's kind of raw data. It's just a kind of an accident report form. Not much I can do with it really, but actually with OverDRIVE, there is ways in which I can implement and interact with this data that I just simply can't do within Sheets. So first of all, I can sort very easily. That's pretty good. I can filter this list. Again, that's pretty good. It's easy to find the information depending on what I'm looking for, which is always very useful. Once I've filtered this list, so let's look at Moonshower. Once I filter this list, I've got the option of printing this list, creating PDF documents from this list, or indeed just copying to clipboard. So again, I'm looking at this information and I'm allowing my users to interact with it in a more intelligent manner. We're doing a lot of work on spreadsheets. So in the next release, which will be in Q1, we're going to be able to truly manipulate Google Sheet data. So we'll be creating groups, we'll be summarizing data, we'll be doing all sorts with the information. Again, things you just can't do with Google Sheets. So that's the Google Sheet. I can also, outside of Google G Suite, what I can do is pull in data from external sources. So I'm not sure if anybody has used Awesome Tables in the past, but it's pretty good. So it's basically a visual representation of data that's held within a Google Sheet. And I've just embedded this Google Sheet onto this page, just a kind of a staff directory. Really easy to do, quite impressive in terms of the way that it looks, and adding more functionality to your OverDRIVE sites. And then there are other things that we can do, such as if I go to expense reports. So one of the big modules that we have within OverDRIVE is our workflow module. So this allows me to create a request for expense claims, for new headcount, purchase requisition, holidays, whatever it may be, and have one or more people approve that process. So really interesting stuff, bringing everything that we've learned from manipulating Google Docs and Sheets into a workflow environment, and just completely extends the functionality of G Suite. We've also got in an option for creating modules where we can capture mobile data. So you can send your staff out to create inspection reports or classroom reports or vehicle inspections, anything like that. Anything where you're out in the field and you need to capture information. Information is captured on a mobile device and sent back into OverDRIVE for us to manipulate it and perhaps send it into a workflow for authorization, etc. You can see how that whole chain works. Let me just quickly show you page builder. I know this has been a real whistle-stop tour, and I apologize that it clearly by necessity is going quite quick, but I wanted to show you one or two things without getting too deep into each of them. Some of the things I haven't mentioned are things that we can manipulate on the page. So we can customize text boxes. Anybody who's used Google Sites would know it's a bit of a problem at the moment with new sites, but we've got full, complete HTML control over text that we have on the page, which is really good. I've shown you most of Drive, so I haven't shown you Google Data Studio. Again, if you've not used Data Studio and you need to create some reports, then it's a really, really good tool to use, part of the Google Studio. We've seen most of these. I haven't showed you groups or photos, but again, you can create discussions and display photos fairly easily. I can also bring in, as I mentioned before, some external data. So for social networks, I can bring in Facebook feeds and Twitter feeds. Again, if I've got a Google Drive folder that I want to share with somebody, just to share documents, I can do that within Google Drive. But what I can't do is bring all this other information into the same space. I can't share a calendar, I can't share contacts, I can't have a workflow, I can't have a Twitter feed. And that's where we're adding richness to how you are sharing your information. Again, there's some other external sources which we can bring in, like Smartsheet, as you can see, even Microsoft OneDrive, which we can pull into here. And I mentioned before templates, so I can save page templates, and I'll soon be able to save site templates as well. So replicate sites for things like projects or teams or annual appraisals, that kind of thing. So I'm going to leave it there. As I said, it is a little bit of a whistle-stop tour. And I think I've shown you some things. Hopefully it's whetted your appetite. What you might want to do is get an idea of what some of our other customers are using OverDRIVE for. So we've got customers worldwide, and because of the very nature that users can create as many sites as they want, we tend to get lots of different uses for sites within an organization. We've also got customers like Tarmac and Western Homes, where we've customized OverDRIVE to meet specific requirements. In their case, it's a HR appraisal system. For Western and Tarmac is a maintenance application. I think, as I mentioned before, for Megan's question, OverDRIVE sites can be made public on request. And UNESCO have got a good example of that. They've got a very, very large quantity of scientific research information, all held within Drive, all a little bit dry within Drive. They've pulled that into an OverDRIVE site and created a site around that and made that publicly available, so anybody can see that information. Again, just a really good use of what OverDRIVE is and what it can do. So finally, just next steps. So there are a number of ways in which you can continue your investigation of OverDRIVE. As I mentioned before, if you've not done so already, you could create one or more trial sites to test some of the features shown in the demonstration. We'll also send you links after the session to our public demonstration sites, so you can visit them and again get an idea of what a finished site may look like. That's always a good thing to do, to see actually what does it look like, will that do the job for me. And we can also arrange an individual consultation with either ourselves or one of our partners to enable us to look at your requirements in detail to see which OverDRIVE features will work for you and what you can use it for. So as I say, we'll send you a follow-up email with a recording of this session with links to other information. And please reply back to us if you have any questions. I don't think there's any more questions coming in. So as I say, all you need to do is reply to that email, drop us a line, and we'll happily answer any questions that have come up. I think Megan's just trying to pop one last one in. Okay, thanks, Megan. Really good, thank you. I'll hopefully speak to you soon. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye now.